folks, it's another week of football, so welcome to On the Ball Report for coverage on the growth of football in the Philippines, plus news results, plus international interviews we'll have as well. I'm your host, Pete Irvin, and we're going to kick off with the Filipino news. And believe me, this lady that we're going to discuss is very, very experienced because she's done several things. She's also a busy person as well, photographer, a writer, probably a researcher. I think she's hidden that part. But anyway, born in Lupes, Quezon, a lady with many talents, as I said, and of course, her name is Mia Montayre. So Mia, welcome to the show. And my question is, how on earth did you get involved in football?
It's quite of a... First of all, I just want to say thank you for inviting me to this show. I was actually surprised that you guys wanted me to be on your show, but thank you nonetheless. And yeah, I actually started, my passion started for football in general when I watched the Brazil men's team. I don't remember what year it was, but Brazil won the World Cup. It was in the early 2000s, yeah. And then since then, I've been a fan of the sport, and I follow teams like France and Spain. But then, what really got me into the sport, I guess, was my involvement with women's football. And this started when I watched the Women's World Cup final in 2011 between USA and Japan, and to the surprise of many, it was Japan that won. So that made me think a lot. Like, wow, that an Asian team can actually beat a powerhouse team, and like the impossible becomes possible through the beautiful game. So after that, I became a huge fan of the Japan team. And it's funny because of what they did for women everywhere, I thought I would like to serve their team somehow, like work for them in Japan. I'd go to Japan and maybe help promote their game there. And then until finally I realized, what if I'll just support my own team here in the Philippines? So that's when I started to look up for on our national team. And then I just thought, okay, we have a team here, and then they're competing in some tournaments. And then there, that was it. I hooked up with this supporter and fan of the team. Her name is Venice Curio. And it was her who introduced me, invited me to watch the team train in, I remember it clearly. It was in BGC in Bonifacio Global City. They were training at one of the turf pitches there.
So, Mia, you got really interested in football when you saw Brazil playing in the World Cup. That must have been a big excitement.
It was my it was my introduction to the sport. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was.
And then you started playing. What would it be? Club level?
Well, actually, my very first experience with football was futsal in university. It was my physical education sport. Yeah. For a semester, I played and I enjoyed it. And then after college, I sought out friends who also played it. So I continued playing for, I think, 2 more years. And then after that, it was just all behind the scenes stuff. Everything I do for football.
If we can go back to futsal, that's a very fast game. I mean, if we sort of explain that, futsal can be played on a basketball pitch area.
Yeah,
it's very fast.
Yes, I noticed it's more tiring for some reason. Yeah.
Now, coming out of the university, then obviously you got involved with the national women's team as a photographer. So did you travel a lot?
I got introduced to I met the team for the very first time, and back then it was Coach Ernest Nieres who was the coach in 2013. Yeah, and then I've been supporting the team since then. And then around the year 2017, when our team was we're going to compete to the Women's Asian Cup qualifiers, the very last stage before you get to the Women's Asian Cup, and which also serves as the World Cup qualifiers. So I thought that it was such a huge deal and that there wasn't a lot of media buzz about it. So I decided, what if I should just go and take photos? Because this is a very huge and special and important tournament, but there's no one in the media here paying attention. So I decided, using my own money, my family's money, go there to Tajikistan, and it was actually my first trip to by myself to a very far away place that I had no idea of, a very remote place. So that was one, and I was able to take photos of them there, and it was the feedback was positive because when we returned, some media, big major networks, they asked for my photos, so that was nice. And then, like I mentioned before, I think the federation, they were able to appreciate that, so they decided to take me along to a bunch of other trips, like in the following year to the yeah, I forgot to mention that our team, they were able to qualify to the Women's Asian Cup during that tournament, so in Tajikistan. So the following year, our girls, our team, they went to Jordan for the Women's Asian Cup, along with the other 8 best teams in Asia, including Japan, Australia, China. And we were grouped actually with China, along with Thailand and Jordan, the hosts. And there, I was able to go there thanks to also to the federation and to some sponsors. And yeah, it was, I think, my biggest coverage assignment as a photographer.
So with the coverage, Maya, that you did with the teams, and I'm reflecting to when France hosted the World Cup in 2019, the Philippine national women's team losing to China, Thailand, and certainly South Korea. But at the same time, what kind of experience would those players get, though they lost against some very tough teams there?
Well, of course, it's a big experience because it's a very big stage. So, my friends on the team, people I know on the team, the players, it was a very special moment for them, and it's like they couldn't. Of course, they felt there will always be some sense of intimidation because it's the first time the Philippine team was able to get to that level. It was virtually a first time, even though long ago, supposedly our team was able to reach the Women's Asian Cup. But circumstances back then were a lot different to now, which is more competitive and a lot harder. So the girls, the players, they really felt it was such a huge moment. And but yeah, eventually, when all that settled down, you realize that you almost made it to the World Cup. So it also hurt.
Which is excellent because now we have 2023 Women's World Cup coming up, FIFA Cup, of course,
Australia,
and that's going to be hosted in Australia and New Zealand. So, what are the chances of the national team, the women's national team, making it through to that particular event?
I would say that the chances also got a little bit bigger because I'm not sure if you guys have heard, but there's an expansion for the number of teams that will be qualified to the Women's World Cup, to that Women's World Cup final in Australia and New Zealand. So the field, I think maybe for Asia there would be 2 to 3 more slots potentially opening up. And then with Australia out of the picture, that opens up even more possibility for teams like us, for the Philippines. So yeah, it's very very exciting.
And now that is a very interesting point because FIFA, they've done the same with the men's World Cup in 2022. They've taken it from 24 teams to 32 teams. So it's a very
Yeah.
good point you made there, that it gives that extra chance there. Now,
Yes.
the $1 million question is, how much talent at the women's level that we can see in Visayas area, maybe Cebu? I mean, who should we be
Oh
looking
yeah.
at to think, hey, they've got a good chance to be on the national team?
Years, I think most of the players they come from here in Manila. Although in a way that's also because most of the players who reached the national team have been playing for the UAAP, for the college teams, and of course the college teams, the big schools are all situated here in Manila. So that's why most of the players come from here in Manila. But then those players who are in those schools, some of them or a lot of them, they come from the provinces. So in a way, the provinces have been represented by these players. We have players from as far as Mindanao, Davao, really good players, and a lot of players from the Visayas area, especially Barotac in Negros. Yes, a lot of our national team players have come from the Negros area. And but this is a senior national team. I'm sure to your delight, since you are now in Cebu, is it um our youth team? We have been developing a lot of good players from the Cebu area. Yeah, and actually, I could say also that there are a lot of good players from Cebu who are now in the University of the Philippines women's football team.
Maya, when you look at it at the national team level, obviously under 17s, under 18s, under 19s is a very, very solid foundation to bring up players to the national team. Now, some of those age groups is missing in the training right now for the women's national team. So how do you get around that? I mean, you're going to have to be playing some other countries to get the experience. I always think that the solid foundation of any national team goes from under 15, 16,
Yes, yes, yes.
17, 18, and 19. Now, that's in Brazil, they start at 10. But when you're looking at the realistic Asian areas of national teams, women's teams, the ideal situation is under 18s, under 19s. But this is where it's a little weak in the Philippines.
Yes, exactly as you say, because right now we have not had a U18, U20, U19 team, even U21 team, for the girls, for the women in the last maybe a decade actually. Yeah.
Why is
It's been a
that?
while.
Why
Yeah.
is that, Maya? Why is that a money problem?
I think it might be connected to that, or like maybe there isn't enough time to organize team. But it's really up to the federation to come up with a team. So I'm not sure exactly why they were not able to produce a team, even though we have a lot of good players from the U14, U15 level who could have placed on those teams right before they go to the senior level. So yeah, we had a lot of good players from the U14 team, especially it was in 20 hold on. In 2014, we had a U14 team that won silver at the AFC or Asian level. But then after that, after their U16 experience, nothing. It just that group of that batch of players, they just disappeared until they recently surfaced again, this time for the college teams, for college football, for
Yeah,
university football, AAP football.
yeah. So
Uh,
when you look at the situation like that, I mean, 18 and 19's missing. It's like a big hole. However, it
the
still
development
has to
is
reflect on the positive side that the under 16s won silver, which is terrific. But moving on now is, are you going to have the opportunity to travel with the team to either Australia or New Zealand in 2023 as the photographer?
so that depends on the sponsors or the federation if they will have enough people to bring with them to. Before all of that, first our team has to qualify first, of course. So there's that. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Now, in saying that, let's Well, let's assume we've qualified, okay? So
Wow.
Australia, New Zealand, we've qualified. Now, here's what do we have to do with the media? Because you're really in the driver's seat. You can take these pictures, you can send them back with information. What do we have to do with the media to get their attention that the Philippines is a growing sport in football?
I think because in the recent Southeast Asian Games, where our team did okay, because they barely missed out on a podium finish. We lost the bronze medal game to Myanmar. Very close. I think it was the final score was, I think, 2-1, 2 to Myanmar, and we scored 1. Yeah. Because of that tournament, and where we also beat Malaysia very well, and we for the very first time we also drew Myanmar. So that, and the coverage there, it was fantastic, because a lot of people were watching. There were a lot of fans in the stands, and then on TV, when you watch, there was a lot of positive feedback you could see on social media. So just there's that kind of momentum, which was unluckily put to a pause because of this pandemic, that will build onto the momentum, and I'm sure the media will pick up on that. They will send teams, staff people to Australia or New Zealand, hopefully along with me, and that will be a very, very nice change compared to when it was just me in Jordan when I covered our women's team for the Women's Asian Cup in 2018. Yeah.
Before I let you go, I've got to get this question in. We've got the World Cup coming up. We're going to say that the Philippines national women's team's made it. Now, this is a stage for the whole world, because the players now are going to be scouted, very much like the men's, to football clubs throughout the world. England have this super women's league going.
Yeah.
I think one of our intentions is maybe we've got one or two young women from the Philippines national team that could go and play in England, whether it be Chelsea, whether it be Manchester United or Newcastle or so on, because that can be very good or big money. Some of the stars there are earning £200,000. Some of the stars, but it starts as low as £40,000 per season. So you've got to keep us informed on who we should be looking for, and maybe we can become agents for them. Who knows?
But actually, when I interview the girls on our national team, a lot of them say that it's their dream to become a professional player who plays in a league overseas. So the situation you're presenting is very nice. But before anything else, I would just want to say that we actually do have a Pinay, a Filipina, playing in the FAWSL, the Women's Super League. But she grew up in England, and she was actually already scouted by the England youth national team. Her name is Mayumi Pacheco. See, it's a very Filipino name. And she plays for West Ham United. So if you want to have a team to watch out for, maybe that would be a nice. She plays left back. Yes.
Wow.
So
are you still Maya? Are you still in touch with her?
I am. We actually got to interview her a while back for our show on Pinay Futbol. It's an online women's football community on a forum called Grow Her Game, and yeah, it was nice. It was nice talking to her, where she told her experiences over there in England.
Maya, thank you a million for coming on the Ball Report. We've got to have you back on again, because you're going to be our pipe of information, the conduit to say what's going on in the national women's team. So please come back again.
Thank you. That would be very, very nice. Yeah, thank you for not just inviting me today, but also for thinking of even getting me back here. So
well, we're going to keep in touch. We're going to keep in touch, so you're not off the hook.
Yes.
Anyway, folks, that's Mia Montayre, a pillar behind the Philippines women's national team, with the photos and the information back. And for any media guys out there looking, you've got to contact us on the Ball Report. And I'll tell you the reason why is that we want to make sure that the media is getting the right information through. And certainly we want to be behind the women's national team. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back after these messages. You know what? Welcome to the world's greatest game of football. You know, you can be smart, you can play smart, whatever your sport. You dress like a pro for your favorite football team. It could be the shirts, the shorts. Best in selection, best in price is Bad Beat Sportswear. It's your team selection. Bad Beat Sportswear is your winner. Well, welcome back to On the Ball Report. And early on in the show, we had Mia Montayre talked about women's pro leagues growing. But just here's a few thoughts. The Barclays Super League, which is in England, of course, has the elite players, and they can earn up to £200,000 yearly. Now, you might think, well, you know what, I mean, 200,000, some of these guys are earning that on a weekly basis. But you know what, it's interesting also to see the international women's teams now on equal appearance monies. This is history in the making. The likes of Brazil, Australia, Norway, New Zealand, and even England. Just in time as FIFA's World Cup is coming up, which would be in 2023, really it's just around the corner, and that's going to be staged between Australia and New Zealand. They're going to host that, by the way. So then you've got to say to yourself, you know, what are the chances of the Philippines women's national team qualifying? Pause. Yes, there's a couple of reasons. The national team needs an under-19 development program, and with the likes of experienced players like Naomi Maspachenko. Now, she is a professional left back for West Ham Football Club of the Barclays English Women's Super League. And can I tell you, her probably salary is pretty good on a yearly basis. But you know what, we're going to keep in tune on the ball, and there's more to come because I'm sure there's other gem talents out there. And I'll tell you folks, you cannot ignore the women's team. They stand a damn good chance of qualifying for Australia and New Zealand in 2023. And coming up on our next Friday show, Central Visayas Football Association's Vice President Nimrod Quinones. And I can tell you it's going to be an interesting interview to say the least. And of course I should say thanks to our production team, Ian, Ben, Renee, and your host, me of course, Pete Irvin. Tune in next Friday and have a safe week. Share, like, subscribe and ring the bell for news, interviews, breaking stories. Thanks for watching On the Ball Report.